So I've created our color data, and what we're going to do now is we're going to basically map that over to be able to drive attributes on a material through a Material SOP. And this will enable us to use this color data to drive parameter changes on a per particle, per instance basis when we render. And this is super powerful. So what we're going to do is first I'm going to make a null at the end of our create CD, just so I have an easy place to access this from. I'm going to call this points. And now I'm going to make a Material SOP. Okay. So we're going to use the Material SOP, and we're going to change the attributes to point attributes because we're dealing with points, and we want to turn on overrides, use local variables. And you'll see what happens in a minute when we do some variable overriding. So for the material, we want to choose a material we've built for you, and that's in this materials object here. And you see we have this shader called instances. So first off, what we're going to do is let's go to the geometry spreadsheet, and you can see that, let me scroll over to shop material path. You can see that this has been added to each point. So basically on a per point level, the material path is assigned so the renderer knows per point what shader it should assign to what instance. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create an override for the color of this material based on the CD color that we had defined per point. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to local overrides, hit this plus to get an override to create. Let me open this up, and we're going to go to choose parameter, and it's pulled all the parameters off this shader. We're using the basic Disney principled shader for this. So I'm going to go to base color, and you can see that it knows it's a color value, and it populates all the RGB with white. So now if I go to the geometry spreadsheet and over here, you can see that now we have this material override, and this is the syntax in here where it has base color R, G, and B all set to 1, all the exact same. And so this is basically allows it to pass this sort of syntax over to the renderer, which will know that this is the base color value for this particular point and therefore that particular instance. But we want this to be different per point. So we're going to use a point expression. So we're going to use point quote / underscore points, which accesses that null that's right above here that we just made. Now we're going to end quote that, comma, $PT, just to say, grab the point number, comma, CD to get the color data attribute, and then comma 0 to get the first index of that. R will be 0, G will be 1, B will be 2. Okay, so let's close that. Now I'm going to copy that expression, paste it into the green field, and then just change that 0 to 1 to get the second index of the attribute. And then paste it into the third field, change this last number to a 2 to access the last index of the attribute. Okay, so now if we scroll over here and open up our material override, you can see now instead of 1s in all of this, we actually have the exact same R, G, and B data that is in our CD. Let me full screen this a bit so we can see all of this together. So for example, with this 0.0 here, base color R is 0.26, blah, 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 and CDR is 0.26, G is 0.47, G 0.47, and B 0.696, B 0.696. So we've basically just taken the CD data and mapped that over into shader override data. Okay, cool. So again, this is just basically just adding these attributes to our points. If I'm not in wireframe mode, this all just kind of goes away right now too, just because now that we've assigned the shop material path, the viewport is thinking of this differently. So I'm just going to go into wireframe mode so we can see that. And now just to clean up our chain here, I'm going to middle mouse click and see what we've got going on. The only attribute I don't really want anymore is ID. So I'm going to do an attribute delete. And we're going to delete out ID and then anything out of vertex, prims, or details, just in case there was any errant stuff there because we don't need it. And now I'm going to do a null on the end of the whole chain here. Make sure its display flag is on and call it underscore out. Okay, so now we have created and tweaked and refined all the attributes on these points that we're going to use to drive geometric instances.